Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle Earth here at the video looking at the faction trade adjustments that have recently come out. We're going to do a tier list covering which ones I think are the best and which ones I think are the worst. So stay tuned. All that coming up in just 1 second. Okay, before we get started with the tier list, I do want to show a quick overview of what these faction traits are currently, so you have some idea, because we're going to go through them kind of rapid fire in tier list format. If you're very new to the game or have just not thought about it very much, there are different buffs associated with each faction. So as you can see, if you go here, we have the praised land for Linden. Wood grain gathering yield is plus 10%. It shows their special unit type here. Bear in mind, this is also a season 2 map, so we don't have the newest factions in here, but it's going to give you the general idea of what things are. But as you can see, you can click through and see that we have Rohan here with army march speed at 3%. We have Gondor with construction time at -5%. We have Lotrorian, commander XP gain is plus 5%. Mordor has resource production plus 5%. Eisinger has the conscription and hiring cost at -10%. Airborne has conscription and hiring time at -5%. Rune has damage dealt to non-player armies plus 10%. Agmar has plus 10. Agmar has plus 5% siege damage. Like we said, Linden has the plus 10% for wood and grain gathering, and Arnor has the -5% construction cost. Now the other two not mentioned here are the Variacs and Gondor. Gondor has the plus 10% storage limit, and Variacs have XP and resources gained from sweeping plus 15%. And like I said, we're going to go through these in tier list format. We actually don't usually do tier list videos. We do a lot of tier list streams. So if this is something you like, make sure you let me know down in the comments below and like the video so I know to do more videos like this one. But we're going to do these in the order they're listed out from the announcement from the dev, starting out with Rohan, who is previously their march speed was plus 3%. Now they have reposition speed plus 50%. This one is pretty good. And so again, this is going to be personal preference. I'm going to be ranking these off of how I think their usefulness is throughout the entire campaign. Some of the ones that might have to do with gathering or things that are more crucial early game, to me personally, aren't as valuable throughout the entire game, especially at the end when it's really coming down to the fighting, the combat that's going to happen. So I'm going to, for now, put Rohan in the A tier, I believe. Reposition speed is when you're going from an area to a fort. So the ability to move around the map a lot quicker, not to mention the usual higher use of cavalry means they can just get places a lot faster, which is a pretty big advantage in terms of any, end game PvP combat stuff that's happening, whether it's just getting to places to capture things or just bouncing your opponents off the tiles they're trying to go to, stuff like that. So I'm going to put it in A right now. We may shuffle things as we continue going, but that's the Rohan faction trait. Next up is Gondor. Theirs was the construction time, -5%. Theirs is now stone and ore gathering, plus 10%. We'll see if we want these to stay here, but to be honest, the gathering specific ones to me are going to be dustbin, because while yes, early game especially, gathering is very beneficial. We've actually done recent math to find out that converting units after you get to like level 30 mobs is more resource effective than gathering. Obviously, if the mobs around you are the ones you're actually using, so there is that to take into consideration. But to me, gathering is used very early game, and then after that, you're going to be converting mobs, or you're just not going to be gathering because you're going to have enough resources, and it's just more about the combat side of things. So that's just me personally. That's how I do it. So I'm going to say Gondor, the faction trait, is going to go in the dustbin. All right, the next one up is Lotrorian. They previously had the plus 5% commander XP, which I think is a pretty good one. Their one now is going to be wounded units recovery rate plus 10%. So as you have wounded units after battle, they're going to recover 10% faster. This one is pretty underwhelming for me. Obviously, if you are completely free to play, you're not speeding up anything happening. That can make a slight difference, but it's not going to really allow you to have a strong advantage over your opponents, because a lot of people are just using their speed ups or using gems. If it's like in a really intense situation, people save their boosts and their gems for situations where they need to keep just cranking troops out. But if that's not you, 10% is not going to mean the huge difference for you to be able to get back. It's 10%. So while you will see some use from it, I personally don't think it's great. I'm going to put it in the C tier because I think it's better than gathering, but not amazing. All right, next one is for Mordor. They previously had the resource production plus 5%. Now they have Sauron's gift, which is max ability points plus 20%. There's no doubt in my mind that this is S tier. It's kind of broken. The 20% max ability points is kind of ridiculous. For example, in my server right now, we have a max of 40 ability points. Again, we're winding down. We've captured a lot of things, but 20% of 40 is 8 additional ability points, and ability points regen fully. All of your ability points regen in 24 hours. The more you have, the faster you get them. So adding 8 more on top of that for us is just going to allow us to do so much more stuff. So it can be situational. Obviously, if you don't have very many to start out with, it's going to be a smaller amount. But the reality is 20% is pretty significant for a very, very useful resource being ability points in the game. All right, the next one's going to be for Eisinger, which I also think is pretty good. They previously had conscription cost negative 10%. They're keeping that, so it says conscription cost negative 10%, but then their barracks capacity is plus 10%. Now, this one I'm not going to rate as crazy good. I think I'm feeling a B rating for it. First of all, conscription cost 10% is solid already. I think it's a really good one. The barrack capacity, the 10%, I think is very useful. But the reality is, by the end of the game, when you have a really large barracks, you're not going to be really needing that extra 10%. I feel like earlier game, maybe there are times when you're trying to fill it up more. But as you get later and have upgraded it all the way, where that 10% would be a significant chunk, you probably aren't going to be filling it up all the way because you're fighting, or your season's going to be over. So I think it's kind of situational. But I do think the conscription cost with the additional capacity for the barracks is very nice. We're going to put it at a nice B tier right in the middle. The next one up is Airborne. They previously had conscription time negative 5%. Now they have dwarven units conscription time negative 10%. So the conscription time got reduced even more, which is good, but it's just for dwarven units specifically. Now, the ability to get more troops faster does mean you can fight more and do more, which is a good thing, but it's limited just to dwarves. While dwarves, I think, are good, there are some good uses for them. I think the fact that it is just dwarves is kind of limiting. So this one to me kind of feels like it's in that B range as well. Again, if you play a lot of dwarves, this is going to be very, very good for you, which if you're playing an Airborne, you might be doing that anyway. But I think it depends on what commanders you end up using. And as you get later and later into the game, season 5, 6, 7, whatever, you have a larger variety and you're not just going to be using 3 or 4 dwarven commanders that all do similar things. A lot of them are damage dealing commanders, not all of them, but a lot of them are. So I think it's a little bit situational, so we're going to put it at a B rating. In fact, I think I will put it above Eisinger, but I could go either way on that. So that's just where I'm sitting right now with Airborne. The next one up is Rune. They previously had damage dealt plus 10% against non-player armies. Now, there's always been this rumor that this skill actually affected all damage. I don't know if it was true or not, and I don't know if it always reflected that way in the battle reports or not. I will say one of the hardest seasons where I took the worst trades with like Witch King to Witch King matchups or anything that I feel like should have gone a little better. Fighting Rune in the past, I feel like I got my butt kicked. So it could have just been the placebo effect, but I feel like I felt that before. But anyway, the new one is Walker of the Sands. It's damage plus 12% when battling on desert lands. Now 12% is really, really significant, but it is very limiting. If this was just 10% overall or even a little chunk overall, that could give you the edge sometimes. So I'm going to put this at an A, but note that it's very, very situational. But again, if you're Rune and anywhere on the side of the map where there are desert lands, you're going to do very, very well. So defensively and early game, I think you have a really large advantage. I think if you end up pushing out really far to the west, you see really less to no use from that. But again, I think in its use, it's very good. So I'm going to put it, honestly, I think right there feels good because when it is useful, it's going to be 12% is pretty significant. So that's where we're going to put that one in the A tier. The next one is Agmar. They previously had siege damage plus 5%, which was pretty insignificant because evil already sieges like nobody's business. So 5% is not really a huge deal. Now they have one called Ringwraith Sorcery. It says soldier's death rate is negative 5% on top of the current death rate. So it's going to increase the amount of wounded soldiers you get in battle. 5% is not crazy, but again, it's going to allow you to do a little bit more. So I don't see this one being really overwhelming, but I think it's better than what it was. I'm going to put it in the B tier, just a little bit more wounded that you can heal up to continue fighting. Kind of middle of the road to me. Next up is the Linden trait, which previously was wood and grain gathering plus 10%. Now it is wood and grain extracted plus 15%. Again, this is very similar to Gondor's. Gondor's is gathering. This one is extraction. I think extraction personally is worse than gathering. There could be situations where it's beneficial, but to me, it's going to be in the dustbin. We already talked about that. So sorry, Linden, you're going to the dustbin. The next one up is Arnor. They previously had construction cost negative 5%. The new one is called Battle Scholar. It is EXP gained from battles plus 10%. I'm not 100% sure if this would include mind sharpening, which would make it even better. But to me, the ability to have higher levels, to have more command, to have more skill points than your opponents is pretty significant. So even if this is just on tiles, for taking 200 tiles, that 10% is going to add up a little bit over time. So to me, that's going to give you an advantage and have more commanders on the field and better levels, more skill points, like that kind of thing. So I think it's an A tier one. I'm fine with it being at the bottom of the A tier, but I do think at the very end of the game, when you're not really leveling anymore, if you have a bunch of 50s, which is kind of hard to do because it's such a grind to level up commanders, but hypothetically, at the end of the game, this becomes less useful because you've kind of got your level set. But I still think it's going to give you an advantage, and I think that's going to be pretty good for the end game. So we're going to put it in the A tier. The next one is Gundabad. They had storage limit plus 10%, which was pretty good. But again, if you need the extra 10% and you're maxing out your stuff all the time, you probably don't really need the 10%. So this new one is called efficient allocation. It is a resource trade rate plus 10%. So 10% better trades in the market if you're trading resources for one another. This is pretty good. I think I want to put this in the A tier, maybe B tier. But again, resource trading is something you do. It allows you to shuffle things around. You have to worry less about which types of tiles you have. So in Gundabad, even more so, you can just take any tiles that are high power in exchange at less of a penalty. So I think that adds a lot of flexibility to what you can do in Gundabad. So I think I'm gonna put it at the top of the B tier. I know we're getting a lot in the middle of the area here, but I think it's really good. It could even be A tier, but I think it's really solid. We're gonna put it at the top of the B tier. And the last one here, the faction trait for the Variacs was XP and resources gained by sweeping plus 15%. Now it is XP and resources gained from sweeping plus 25%. So to me, 25% resources and XP from sweeping make sweeping another viable method to get resources to level up your commanders outside of taking tiles, which you might be tile capped on. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one, I think I'm going to put it in the A tier. I think we want to keep Mordor by itself because Mordor is very, very, very good with the ability points. So I think it's his top tier. Again, we could shuffle some of these around. I think we can make the argument that this goes up in the A or the S tier as well. But I think this is a good spot, at least for me. Again, this is my personal preference on these new things. At the very least, hopefully you enjoyed just learning about what the faction traits were. But let me know down below if you think any of these are better or worse than I thought they were. This is just based on my experience and my play style. So your list might look totally different, but that's what makes the game exciting. There's lots of varieties of ways to play. So let me know what you think about these new adjustments. But that's going to do it for today's video, and I hope to see you in a future one.